it's a good ability to come back in games. It's important. You're going to need to do that throughout the course of a year. I don't like that we're having to do it this much.
We had to find a way to muck through the slop of the game.
Yes, the Edmonton Oilers mucking through the slop, as Jay Woodcroft so succinctly put it, but they grabbed 2 points. They did it in dramatic fashion, and as you heard Connor McDavid say, not ideal that they have to keep on coming back in games, but they're building a little resilience into their game, aren't they? Big win over the Florida Panthers, and the Oilers, despite their injuries, put back-to-back wins together. Welcome to Got Your Back, YEG, brought to you by Mr. Dirk. Located just off White Avenue and 102nd Street, Mr. Dirk is your one-stop shop for all your clothing needs, and I mean all of them. If you're a businessman and you want to look sharp at your next meeting, or if you want to sharpen up your look around the office, they've got a great selection of amazing suits and shirts and ties and shoes. They can help you make a statement professionally that you're on top of your game. But if casual is what you're needing, they got plenty of that as well. Jeans and pants, shirts, sweaters, lots of high quality, really nice, trendy stuff. Mr. Dirk is a great place for quality clothing of all types. And the whole crew is together this morning. Zuby and Kelowna, TR out on the East Coast, and Jason Strudwick. Morning, fellas. Hey, we have a review, boys. We've been asking for reviews on the podcast, and a few have dropped. Zuby, you had an absolute beauty. Why don't you throw it at us?
Yeah, this is fabulous, and this is we appreciate, of course, all feedback.
Yes,
let's keep in mind that this is a 4-star review, so this is still very good. Where this is
out of 10.
Out of 5, we're in the 80th percentile here. This is from Curb84, and his title is "One of the Better Ones." And okay. He says, "If you like several minutes of old jokes about Strudwick's lack of style and Getzlaff hair to start every episode, then this podcast would be 5 stars."
What the
so
hell,
that's
Curb,
where we lose our.
about?
But that's where we lose 1 star for this fella. Yeah. But 5 stars for anyone who is all in on that.
We never talk about my hair. What the hell is that? I think that's a personal shot, Kirby 2782, whatever your name is. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
Well, do we know who Kirby is? Could Kirby be one of us?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's my burner account.
It's not me. I think we're wondering if maybe it's you, TR.
Yeah,
we know it ain't us.
Hey, I'm over here just loving life, doing my job on the East Coast, like many other of my.
Yeah. I don't know, Struds. How do you do with the tax online? Like, we all get it, right? We're in the media, and so people will come at us now and then. I had one guy who, for years, he kept saying, I'd tweet something and he'd respond to me, "Why are your eyes so close together?" And I was like, so I was kind of annoyed the first time I saw it, and then whatever, I tweeted, I don't know, a little while later, same thing. Why are your eyes so close together? And then so I blocked him. And then he created another handle, and he came back at me again. Same thing. Why are your eyes so close together? Just a really simple tweet, like nothing else. No comments on anything I was doing. And that guy followed me around, guy or girl, I don't know, followed me around for a couple of years until it finally, I guess he got bored with the lack of response from me. But I don't know. Like, I try and let it bounce off me. I try and be like, yeah, of course, nothing bothers me. But there's the odd one that can kind of cut to the core a little bit. I don't know. Am I too sensitive?
Yes.
That's why. Go ahead, Struts.
Yeah, you are too sensitive. It's some random person tweeting at you. You don't even know who they are. And they might just be saying it to be funny. I get chirped on Twitter and on our text line on the Gregor show. And, I'm like, I sometimes it depends the mood. If I'm into it, I'll get a little bit combative and I'll start chirping back. I'll go through their profile, check out what they're into, maybe find out where they work. I had one guy one time say something like unreally bad about my mom and my sister.
What?
So I found out, I went through his timeline. I saw the hockey team he played for, the men's league team, who was sponsored by. I got the number of the business. I called there multiple times, left my name and number so to call me back, and said, I'd love to meet this guy to chat about how he feels about my mother and my sister. And I left about 2-3 messages. And a little while later, that guy no longer followed me. So mission accomplished.
Wow.
You went to those lengths. Yeah. I mean, that's a great story.
Yeah.
But see, that's the reason I don't go on there much. Like, I'm more on Rishaug's side. I wish I could say it didn't bother me, but it does sometimes, but if you've noticed in the last 2 or 3 years, not that you would, why would you? But I don't. I go on Twitter to get news, retweet something, but I really don't. It's just to me, it's largely poison. I like to go on there with you guys, see what you're up to, follow the people I'm following, but to get involved in the back and forth communication is usually poisonous in my mind. But I love what you did, Struds. I just can't. I can't have it take up that much of my day. But
no problem.
If I was to, I'd like to do it like you.
I'm very passive aggressive. So I'll be like, yeah,
That's
great.
just
Thanks for the
aggressive
comment,
aggressive.
man. What's that?
That's just aggressive.
No,
that was not passive aggressive.
No, but in a nice way. I just called. I'd be like, hey, this is Jason Strudwick. This is my phone number. This is the Twitter handle. This is what he said. I'd love to meet him. I'd love to sit down and really talk to him. See if he has the guts to talk to me like that in person. And just calmly, like, we can do this. And I find that, most people on Twitter, the things they say on there would never say to your face. So I always think about that. Like Zuby 2727 would never say that to my face. So I just call him out, like, let's meet, let's get together. I'd love to chat with you. And,
Zuby, have you ever trolled Zuby? Come on now.
No, I'm not I'm not a Twitter troll, but I famously among us anyway, I used to always change Ryan's Wikipedia page.
Oh yeah.
When we were like not even like particularly in communication, I used to change his Wikipedia page, and people had phoned into him on Edmonton radio and say, "Hey, is it true that you won a Mr. Tight Buns competition at Barry T's?" Because I had put that on his Wikipedia page. And it was there for years. And I had friends still in Edmonton who knew that I had done that and called me and said, they're asking Ryan about that on the radio.
You've made your mark, Zuby. You've made your mark.
Beautiful.
Hey, Struds, you know what else works really good? The mute button. The block button. Like, doesn't take up your family time. You don't have to go looking through the phone book. You don't have to go like all hunting people down. Like,
don't give them satisfaction.
Liam Neeson in a bad movie. Hey,
they win. I've never blocked anyone, muted, nothing, because then they win.
Why?
Because they win. That shows weakness. I'll never show the weakness on Twitter. Never.
How does that show weakness if you just basically tell a guy to shut up by blocking him? And
because
they're
looking for a response. You're allowing them to get to you, Shugger. Don't let them get to you.
Oh, you have to remember. Do you want to point out the hypocrisy there?
Them, though. I figure if I block somebody, then they're gone. Now they can't. Yeah. Right. They're not satisfied by pecking away at me. I don't know. It's just the way I look at it. I find that Twitter brings out, honestly, the worst part of humanity. It's poisonous. Oh, yeah, why don't I go to, dark places of town at night? Because it brings out the worst in humanity, I think Twitter's the same stuff.
It can be. Yeah, it definitely can be. But Struds, just 1 second. You are saying that the guy who did that to you isn't winning when there's a guy running around out there with the story being like, I chirped Struddy on Twitter. He went nuts. He went nuts. He was phoning my work. It was hilarious. I totally got him.
I didn't go nuts. I did my research, like he did on me, and I called him out. So I made him change his. He took his account down because of the work I did. So I won.
The work I did.
That's. I'm not. So if anyone has any problems out there, let me know. I will do the research. I've got time. I actually don't have time, but I have time for that. I love it. I love calling if someone plays a business and saying, "This is who I am. This is what the person did." I'd love to talk to them. Because you imagine if that's if your boss's number and he's hearing that's what Ryan Rishaug said.
Yes.
Do you think there's a conversation there? That's who's representing. I love it, and there's nothing wrong. I'm just saying this is what your buddy said. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Just wanted you to know. I love it. You can never block someone. They win. Don't let them win.
What about people that are anonymous though? Right?
That's
most.
Yeah, but
I block a lot of anonymous donkeys. I block a lot of anonymous donkeys for sure.
Can't do it.
That's the barometer for me. I think that's a good point, TR. If there's no name attached, whatever, easy block for me. But if it's like John Smith and he's got a picture of him and his kids, what I'll do is if I feel someone's being an asshole and they've got their name and it's their real identity, I'll actually talk directly to them. I've done that a bunch of times where I've been like, "Hey man, you were really kind of being a prick here. Like, what's up? Why did you do this?" And more often than not, it's like a 2 or 3 text conversation and they're apologizing by the end of it.
Yeah.
Man, Struds, what you did, though, that's legendary. That's like Jay and Silent Bob stuff. And because no matter how that guy wants to retell that story, he was crapping his pants. If it really got to him, he was crapping his pants. Oh my! Who if Struds
Yeah.
wants
Just come
to
happy.
talk to me like
wanna
he?
meet.
Yeah,
Let's talk.
that's awesome.
But I wanted his boss
great.
to hear it. I wanted his boss to hear it. That's what I
great
want.
move.
Now his boss, I'm guessing he's probably the same as this idiot was, but I made the call 2 or 3 times. My name, my number, what he said, what I wanted to do. It was great. Hey man,
This
like
says a
Jim's-
lot to me though about Struds. Struds, you're pretty mentally like this. There's a parallel here in the dressing room on the ice. You don't get mentally frazzled
No.
too often. I guess you could
Why?
say. I mean, if you've
Why
never
bother?
blocked anybody, I block hundreds of people.
Not
I don't
once.
like any poison whatsoever. I just go over to Instagram and look at rainbows and lakes or whatever.
Struds, you have another habit. We got to get to the game here, and we will in a second, folks. Sorry, we're off on a tangent here, but whatever. It's a podcast. You have another habit you do online. It cracks me up every time I see it. So you did it the other day. Where is it here? Here it is. So the Edmonton Elks tweet, "Do you have what it takes? Join us December 10th in Tampa, Florida, and show your stuff. Contact for their open tryout," right? So someone will ask a question online or do something like that. Here's Strud's reply. "No, I don't have what it takes, but thanks for asking." Like, you do this all the time. You respond to people and you say, "No, but thanks for asking," when it has nothing to do with you and no intention for you whatsoever.
It's so funny. Like people be like, "Hey, we're looking for a graphics designer. Can you help us out?" "I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of training. Do you need anything else?" Like,
But
just
thanks
like,
for asking. Like, you're such a smart ass. Like, what are you doing?
But I have
You're
to admit,
trolling.
I do like to troll on Twitter. I think my favorite one ever, and I will stop
buddy.
with this, is before Austin Matthews' first NHL game. This is before his first game years ago. I tweeted out like about 4 hours before. I said, "Does anyone know what time the Austin Matthews jersey retirement ceremony is starting tonight in Toronto?" And honestly, people went nuts. You were the worst hockey player ever. You suck. And then Darren Drager wrote me back. He's like, "I love it. I love it." That's all he wrote, a private message. That's when I knew I got to Toronto. Like, I love getting to Toronto. I just think about that all the time.
Does Overdrive pay better than the podcast? Is that why you need those overtime invoices? Hey?
I do it for free so I can chirp those guys. I love getting into Toronto's head. It's something about it. And they're so predictable. So predictable.
Okay, let's get to the game last night because it was an interesting one. Time for the breakdown, brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. Zuby, we'll talk to you soon. DLR Vinyl supplies some of the nicest maintenance-free decking and fencing products out there. If you've always had that wood fence or deck in your backyard and it's getting a little sketchy and you're worried about what it's going to look like when all this snow melts off, well, think about next year being the year where you drop in some maintenance-free vinyl product. No more sanding, staining, nothing to worry about as far as upkeep. It looks amazing the day it goes in, and it stays that way for decades. It's DLR Vinyl Products. They got locations in Calgary and in Edmonton. Okay, listen, not their A game. Both McDavid and Draisaitl expressed that after the game. Struddy, I'll start with you. You got to be able to win games where you're not necessarily playing your absolute best, and it was more exciting than they wanted it to be. But what's your main takeaway from that?
Well, the Oilers have a thin lineup, right? So basically it came down to 3 guys throwing the team on their back and getting it done. It's going to have to be like this for a while. Connor bangs out 27 minutes or whatever it was, or 26, whatever it was. So you're right. You're not going to have a full team. You're not going to play a full game. And TR, when you're the best player in the room and your team is struggling, it's like, hey, we got to do it. Like, no one's looking around to, whatever, Ryan Malone or not, right? Brad Malone, like, you need to score a hat trick tonight. Like, they're all looking at the big guys saying, hey, tonight's your night, TR.
Totally. And, sometimes you get behind. I thought there was a bit of energy with Hamblin. Is that his name for his first game?
Hamblin?
I could see a lot of players around the bench. They were feeding off that energy. And I believe some of the fans as well. I'm watching it from my home. Of course, you guys are at the game. It's a little bit different, but correct me if I'm wrong there. And I thought, the game that Zach Hyman brought, I thought maybe it was, the team played like it was a metaphor of his game. He made some mistakes, but he just kept going hard, relentless. And even got a goal got called back, but stuck with it. I thought the team, for the most part, you're not going to always play your A game, like you said, but there were some great things that happened. Florida usually gets more shots, and I thought they played pretty well and got rewarded at the end.
Yeah, I like that you brought up Zach Hyman, because I think, I mean, I don't know, might have been the best Oiler overall in this game, just in terms of his stick to itiveness and his grind. And he touched all the goals except the overtime winner. So on the first one, what was it? It was that great pass up ice, just a great threading the needle pass to Connor McDavid. The second one, like 10 or 15 seconds before the goal, if you go back and look at the work he did behind the net, Zach Hyman is better than any player I have ever seen at finding a way to win pucks that he should not win. It looks like he's at a disadvantage in a puck battle, and somehow he throws a knee out, blocks a stick, or kicks it up to his stick, or he's ridiculous at winning puck battles in close spaces. And he did that on that second goal about 10 or 15 seconds before. And then if you go to the tying goal off the draw, it's Hyman jumping into the face-off, into the circle, and digging a puck out and giving the Oilers possession. So, just finds a way to touch games, even though he isn't slick and skill like the other high-end guys, and ridiculous puck retention skills, I'll call it, Struds.
But everyone wants to play with him. TR, you can imagine that's a guy you want to play with, because he's going to keep the play alive. He's going to go get the puck. And then if you give him a puck within 5 feet of the net, he can probably put it in there. So he, to me, was all about this game. He was the guy that was driving the engine. And I get it. You're trying to spread it out a bit. You put him on with Nugent Hopkins, and then, with Puljujärvi up top, and then you kind of switch it up. But he brings it every single night. And I think Jay Woodcroft, honestly, while they had these injuries, I would just, and I'm not a fan of the two guys together generally, but when you have all these injuries, I think you just load up that top line, say, you guys, you're probably gonna have to get 2 to 3 goals a night for us tonight, or for the next little while.
Is that all? Yeah.
Well, let's just be honest. Like, that's the truth. Who else is scoring in this lineup right now? Like, Nuge has been pretty good, but Puljujärvi, nothing there. Holloway has one. Janmark, who's the next best scorer after that, TR? Like, I'm running out of names here pretty quickly with, 4 or 5 of your top 9 players in the medical tent.
Yeah, and it's a fact. You don't. That's not ideal. Of course, it's not ideal, especially not in hockey, which has so many nuances to the game and so many players get involved. But sometimes you got to do it. And getting back to Hyman, I want to make this point as well. It's not just hard work. It's hard work with the hockey IQ, with intuition. If you watch what he does, he goes to the right area as he forechecks, and that's a big thing for young players as well that watch. It's not just hard work. You got to work hard and you got to work smart. And I do think that maybe that lights a fire. Back when LA were really on top and Dustin Brown was playing, when did they play their best? When he was, they kind of remind me of each other a little bit. They shoot the same way. They're relentless, but their IQ when they're forechecking is very, very high, and that can't be disregarded.
Yeah, that's a great point, Struds. Like, lots of guys show up with the intention to battle hard and do what they can, right? I think about, let's use Puljujärvi, for example. And I'm not saying he's bad at this, but he shows up in the corner and he looks like he's trying to get the right things done right now. Hyman is on a different level because, and I think maybe a little bit about Ryan Smith. It's almost like Velcro for some reason. The puck's kind of got some Velcro when he's battling for it. And those intuitions, it's like he's got this extra sensory perception of time and space around him, where he just slightly angles his body and, throws his knee kind of in the way, or he just sort of moves in a certain way to eliminate the other player's stick, and he kicks it up, and he does it from down on one knee. He does it from, if he's on, on both knees. Like, this guy, he just has this intuition with keeping the puck right in and around his body and winning those battles. And you said it great. Guys want to play with him. Jay Woodcroft actually has said multiple times this year, he's a hard player to play against and an easy player to play with.
So one of the things I like about Zach Hyman is how heavy his stick is. And I think for people who maybe aren't familiar with the game, that means that, when I'm as a defenseman or someone competing with the puck for him, I try to lift his stick. I can't get it up. And Ryan Smith, he was the great example. Not an unreal skater. I say his shot wasn't a bomb, but my God, if you try to lift his stick in front of the net, it felt like he was, King Kong, one of the strongest guys ever. And that's really hard as a defenseman. You're trying to lift that puck and move him out, and he's just hard on it. And then for both Smithy and to our conversation, Hyman, what separates Hyman from a Foegele and a Puljujärvi is once he gets it, what he does with it. He doesn't panic with it. He's comfortable with the puck in the tight areas, and and he'll make plays out of those tight areas. And oftentimes those plays are maybe finding 97 or 29, which isn't ever a bad decision. But, sometimes guys in the offensive zone, TR, they get it. And now they start panicking. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, I got to get rid of it. And they throw it away. And I know as a defender, I liked it when guys threw it away. I didn't like it when guys held on to it, and moved around the ice so much.
Oh, I totally, I concur. I find if you're out there, for me, I generally played with, I don't know, Damon Lankow, I'll go to Mark Wolf in the minors. And I generally played with players who were probably considered better scorers than I was. But I also learned from them. I think the space that the big two create, I think Hyman really uses to his advantage. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
His intuition, I say forechecking, I think it really shines through when he anticipates the play. He can anticipate it with those guys, whereas I don't think Puljujarvi really can. There's just an example again. Now he's trying hard, and I don't think Puljujarvi's necessarily. I think he's working real hard. He's not turning it over as much. I don't think he has the same hockey IQ. And I think when players like that play with players that open up the ice and they can anticipate, you're going to maximize your potential. And I think that's what's going on. I think that's what you saw with Hyman last night.
A switch from Jay Woodcroft as well put Hyman back with McDavid and Draisaitl after Puljujarvi started the night there. A couple games in a row where he's made switches in game, and it's yielded results at least. Put together a third line against the Rangers there that definitely contributed. Nice switch there with Hyman when he sensed he was going, and a couple of comeback wins for the team. Let's get to the Weiss Johnson soundbox. Here's Leon Draisaitl on the type of win this was for his group.
It was a mature game. We didn't force it. We didn't really, obviously have our easiness in our game with the puck. But with that being said, I thought we were fairly solid defensively and didn't give up much. So, sometimes you got to win these games too.
We'll remind you that Weiss Johnson will tell you it's a great time of year to look into a furnace for the garage. Winter is here in force this week especially. And if you want to let the family get into a nice toasty warm car, give them a shout, 780-463-3096. Or visit the showroom at 5803 Roper Road. Really nice showroom. I actually had a furnace put into the garage last week, and I'm loving it. My wife's driving the kids to school today, and she's getting into a nice toasty warm car. And Weiss Johnson sent over a great crew, dropped it in there, and it makes a huge difference for our family. That is Weiss Johnson. Draisaitl calls it a mature win. Here's Connor McDavid, guys, as we go back to the Weiss Johnson soundbox.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird one from our group. I thought we were kind of lethargic, but we seemed to kind of hang in there. We always talk about winning with your B and C game, and I thought for a large part of the night we didn't have our game. I thought they were kind of lethargic too. It was a little bit of a slow game, probably not the most entertaining game in the world, but I thought both teams did a good job of hanging on to it, and obviously we kind of stole it late there.
Additions to the lineup, Struds. Let's talk about James Hamblin. Really interesting storyline here going on with the Oilers. And Hamblin, Skinner, and Benson are all with the team right now. They all played together for a couple seasons for the Southside Athletic Club. Really unique that they all land in the same organization and that they all end up recalled at the same time. And Hamblin, great story, really moving, touching, personal story. Lost his mom a few years ago, and this was an emotional thing for him. Struds, what are your thoughts? Big picture on Hamblin being here, getting a game, and then what you saw.
Well, I think we call these three players that came through the Strudwick pipeline. I worked with Skinner and Benson at a local academy when they were in grade 9, obviously launched their careers. And then Hamblin, I worked with him when he was, I think, 17 or 18. I was with a group of defensemen working with, and he was out there. And and I didn't know who he was. Like, not that I'm, a huge star, but I didn't know who he was. But I just was drawn to him every time. Like, who is this guy? What is this guy? Like, and then he tells me I'm actually a forward. I'm like, you're a forward. And he skated so well, and he works so hard in every drill. And I'm drawn towards those type of players that just every practice give everything they have. And Hamblin did it. So I've kind of followed his career from a distance and communicated a little bit with him. Not recently, but kind of, especially was in junior, because I love the way he brings just plays the game and brings the energy. And I thought he actually had some good moments last night. First game isn't easy. Your feet don't feel like they're touching the ice, but you're also really excited to play, and you want to try to contribute. And I thought putting together with two other players he knows pretty well is a really smart move by Jay Woodcroft. But I like Hamblin. To be fair, like I said, I have a bit of a relationship, so I really like him as a person. But I think he brings what the Oilers could use, which is more speed and some tenacity. Probably as a fourth liner when everyone's healthy.
I love it. Lots of positive energy. I mean, what do you want, right? You want players with positive attitudes. You want players that work hard, that get the building buzzing, everybody in his corner. I thought I was very proud of the kid. I've never met him. I just, through you guys telling me stories and from reading online and everything, and positive stories are, a team can really build momentum from those things, especially when you got some injuries and, you're looking at some kind of shining star to either distract you or put you in a positive mindset, and I thought he did the most he could with I don't know how much he played, 8 or 9 minutes maybe.
Just under 10.
Okay, just under 10.
Yeah,
he didn't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
There was a vibe. There was certainly a vibe out there, and I'm all for it. And I also think he's a great player. I've followed him since exhibition, Shogger, since you were telling me the story. And my surprise is that this is the first time. I thought there would have been lots of stories like that on the Oilers. I figured 4 or 5 guys a year in the 90s or in the 2000s. It seemed like my team in Tri-City, we had 14 from Edmonton. So I just figured that would have translated to pro. But that's unique if, and Edmonton being a hotbed for hockey worldwide. But hey, if this is I guess it's a unique story and deserves some attention, but it's more positive than anything. And any team that's, I won't say struggling, but facing adversity probably could use a little bit of an injection of positive karma. And I think they got it.
Jay Woodcroft describes him as being relentless, and it hasn't been an easy path, right? He's had to earn it every step of the way, and it hasn't always been fair, Struds. You could make the argument he made the team out of camp. Like, he was pretty good through training camp and through exhibition. We all knew what the lineup was going to look like because of cap implications and such. So he goes down, he bides his time, he's patient, and I thought he was good in his debut. I like the fact that he skates as well as he does, and they need more guys who skate fast and are relentless. Because when they have good nights, and I think about Warren Fogle, who skates fast and sometimes is relentless, when those players have good nights, your team is putting a really good brand of hockey, a difficult to play against brand of hockey on the ice. And I think Hamblin can push it in that direction as well. Evan Bouchard with another big goal. Nice play. Oilers win a face-off and end up scoring, and then they grab it in overtime. What do you think, Struddy, about these comebacks? I think it's good for a team. I know they don't like being down. They don't like putting themselves in that position. But you develop this strength that no matter what the score is in games, there's still this little flicker of belief. I don't believe the Oilers had that for much of this season, and I think that it's going to be there now moving forward.
Yeah, well, you're right. You don't want to be down, but I totally understand what McDavid and Draisaitl are saying about you don't want to be the comeback kids. I'm paraphrasing. But the reality is their lineup is significantly depleted. It is in a real bad spot with all the injuries, and they've been documented. And they're just lucky there haven't been any really injuries on the goalie or defense right now, or their top end players. So right now, you take the wins any way you can get. I think the Oilers are going into a little bit of a softer spot in their schedule now. No, not all the top teams are playing. So they're lucky in that way that, I think that, to my comments earlier, I think that the big guys can have some big stretches here, and they're going to need to, because you're not looking to Malone or Hamblin or Holloway or Shore. These guys, like, how many goals can they really put together? Are these guys are really going to score that many goals? They're lucky that Bouchard's scoring right now. But I mean, Puljujärvi, Nuge, Janmark, that's your second line. Like, that's probably at best an average third line, if we're being completely honest.
They got caved in last night too. Holy smokes.
Yeah, they did.
Bad.
So that's the challenge, right? So you need your big guys. So I understand you don't want to be comeback, but I think you have to, this isn't a full roster. So I think in that way, TR, you take them any way you can get it.
You build off the momentum. Edmonton are real good at that because their best players are good at it. Think of all the number 1, 2 guys in the league on every team. And I don't know, but there's anybody else that really rises to the occasion like those two. I'm saying Draisaitl and McDavid. And by extension, the team. And you look at it, and some people might say last night, well, they got lucky late. But if I'm Edmonton, imagine if you're Florida. You're thinking, what the hell? Like, that's what we just dropped the ball this late in the game. Like, to me, it's much more egg on their face. And it goes in, and Edmonton take advantage. Now, what happened in overtime? As soon as Edmonton scored, you could feel it. It wasn't just the goal. It was a vibe in the, again, I'll go back. Hamlin's first game, it started with a positive vibe anyway. Now we're going into overtime, and we just scored. You guys had us on our heels the whole game, but now we just scored. And it seems that more often than not, the Edmonton Oilers pick up on that momentum. And it's not always a goal. Sometimes it's a hit. They need to do that a little bit more because it happens a lot. Sometimes it's not even a fight, just jumping in. Hyman did that a few weeks ago. I can't remember. Someone hit McDavid.
Yep.
Maybe it was Edler. But it seems to me that they're a team that really thrive off momentum. So knowing that, moving ahead, you don't want to put yourself in that position a lot, but it's nice to know early in the year, right? A lot of these things were things that maybe they lacked in the past that now it seems that they're putting it together.
Yeah, getting a little bit of mojo here. And by the way, 97 and 29, 2 games in a row together, Struddy. You and I had that chit-chat last week. I think it's through necessity, and I think it's through injury, but these guys have not been scoring recently at the pace they're accustomed to. They haven't. And I think it was Gregor who made the point yesterday, so I want to give him credit for it. But when I said I wanted to see more McDavid and Draisaitl together in moments where things weren't going well, but I think having them play together, as Gregor pointed out, is as much about getting them going too, because over the last 10, 11 games, they've been sputtering by their standards. Mm-hmm. And so put them together, let them work their way through it together. And again, at evens, not generating a ton at evens, that line, the two of them specifically, but finding big moments, finding big wins, 2 games in a row, Leon Draisaitl with the game winner. So I asked Woodcroft about it post-game about those two being together. And he's like, I'm not guaranteeing we're keeping them together. Like he's wanting to set the expectations so far ahead of time that they might not stay together, but a couple games in a row here. And I think it's worked. Darnell Nurse made a nice play on the game-winning goal. He will be the topic in our takeaway segment. That's coming up next. We're going to break down the season that Darnell Nurse has had to this point. You're listening to Got Your Back, YEG, Strudwick, Rishaug, Ryan, Zuby behind the scenes. Stay with us. Lots more still to come. Joined now by Sterling Dirk, right inside the beautiful store over at Mr. Dirk. Sterling, time for a little rapid fire. You up for it?
I'm ready. Here we go.
All right, true or false? You took on title sponsorship of this podcast for the sole purpose of fixing Jason Strudwick's mess.
True. His wife came begging for help.
It's going to be a long, beautiful relationship. It's going to take us a while, pal. All right, true or false? If someone's frustrated looking at their wardrobe, doesn't like their options, it's immediately $1,500 to make any change.
False. You start with one item, you build it up. It's like anything in life. You just need to kind of start placing those pieces and then adding more and more, but it doesn't need to happen all at once.
True or false? Suits are the main thing that Mr. Dirk offers.
False. Actually, we carry a wide array of product from jeans, shoes, socks, underwear, t-shirts, casual wear. I mean, we specialize in tailoring, but we are head to toe for all of our clients from weekend to regular everyday office.
Great stuff. Check out the shop just off White Avenue at 102nd Street. And for all their stock, visit them online, mrdirk.com. Thanks, Sterling. I'll see you soon, buddy. I'm due.
We'll see you soon.
Hey, Struddy, question for you. Have you ever tried putting in your own fence?
I sure have. Between digging the posts, mixing up cement and digging the holes is absolute killer.
It's brutal on the back. Well, listen, what if I told you could put in a fence without having to dig a hole or mix any concrete?
I'd be much more likely to come over and help you out.
Yeah, well, you're not the first guy I would call, but thank you for that. Listen, my brother's company, DLR Vinyl Products, they've come up with a system where you can actually put high-quality vinyl fence in the ground without having to dig a hole, without having to mix any concrete. They can teach do-it-yourselfers how to do it, and they can also work with contractors who might be looking to start installing vinyl. It's super high-quality product. The great thing about it is that it has fantastic longevity. You put it in, you don't have to worry about staining or sanding or anything like that. I've been lucky enough, Struddy. They put in multiple fences in my different yards and they built me 3 decks. I have totally abused the fact that my family is in the fencing and decking business, but it's great product. Give Rob a call in Calgary or Rick a call here in Edmonton. This is a company my dad started. It's a family business. I'm super proud of it. That's DLR Vinyl Products in Edmonton and Calgary. Well, listen, if you're on the ice in 10 minutes, you can go, buddy. Struds and I could do this last segment together. You go, get on the ice.
I'll hang in for 5.
Okay, here's what we'll do. We'll get a thought from you on Nurse, and then we're literally going to let you go in the middle of the podcast.
Okay.
All right, sounds good?
Run.
Yes.
All right.
But don't close your computer. Leave your browser open.
Yeah, leave your browser
I'll just
open.
leave
If
it
there's
just like
anything
this.
going on in the background, I'll make sure you're not live.
All right, that's awesome. All right, time now for Takeaways, brought to you by Sherwood Buick GMC, just off Baseline Road, on the way into Sherwood Park. It's the #1 GMC dealership in all of Canada for 5 years running, and the new Sierra 1500, spectacular. They have a wide variety of trim levels to fit your budget. I've got the Elevation. It's fantastic. The Denali Ultimate is regarded as the most advanced and luxurious in its class. Sherwood Buick GMC has inventory as well. A lot of places are struggling with that right now, but they can actually get their hands on a truck for you. If they don't have it, they'll get it for you quickly. And they've also got a massive used inventory as well. They're wide open for trades. Go see Phil and the crew down at Sherwood Buick GMC. All right, we're on a timeline here, TR. We're going to talk about Darnell Nurse and the season that he's had. But you're sitting there in your hockey gear with an ice time starting in 10 minutes. So the boss is going to give you half a segment off. I want you to give me, try not to make this 4 minutes. Give me your thought on what you've seen from Darnell Nurse so far this season. A season in which, I mean, the salary shot way up, expectations, unfairly or not, probably did as well. Hasn't been piling up the points necessarily. He's been very polarizing. What have you seen, TR?
Honestly, I like what I see. First of all, I think it's players aren't always. I think he took pride in his contract, and you could see it right off the bat. Remember that game in exhibition? He got in 2 fights, or nearly did.
Yep.
It was exhibition, right? It's exhibition, and I think last year he went through and only had 1 or 2 the whole season. So I think maybe he was subconsciously or not making a point. You know, he gives a crap about the contract that he signed. He cares about his teammates. I think when he runs into trouble, he tries to do too much. But I think he's one of the best D in the league. He's real strong in the corners. People, when you watch other forwards, they often don't go to his side because he's there. And so he does a lot without doing it. And there's been players like that, that often probably don't get credit when they're doing their job. And maybe a giveaway or a mishap or a penalty, and, they're in the public eye. But I think he works hard. I think he's a solid D. Again, tries a little bit too much here and there. As long as he can stay away from that and bad habits, I think he's great. And it's nice to see a player that, like I said, cares about the contract that he signed and the people that he's playing in front of.
I think he did a pretty good job. He kept that pretty short. That was solid, TR. You've earned the rest of the day off, buddy. So put that microphone down and stand up and show us that you're standing in your hockey gear. How embarrassing this is. He's a grown man getting dressed at home. Oh my goodness. All right, pal.
By the way, when I try too much like Darnell Nurse, that's when I get into trouble too. So I've done my job. I'll see you guys.
Yeah.
I'll catch you on the rebound. But if I'm shooting, there's no rebound. How am I going to see you? Just look me up.
Hey-oh, Terry Ryan, folks. And there he goes walking away. Look at this
Busy guy.
Oh, man. He's got shinny. He's got a big shinny game that he's got to get to. Okay, Struds, let's pick up where TR left off. A fairly positive review of Darnell Nurse so far. There's a lot of fans out there that probably are having some frustrations and wouldn't necessarily agree. Take me through your thought process on where his game is, maybe compared to some of the best hockey that he's played in his career other years.
Yeah. Well, let's start with this. True #1 defensemen are not plenty, right? Like when I'm thinking of Adam Fox, Roman Yossi, Drew Doughty, I think had a bit of a rebound last year. These who am I missing? Makar, Hedman, these are true #1 defensemen. And there aren't many of them. So it's that upper tier, and then there's, everybody else. And I think Darnell falls under the next grouping. I think he's in that next grouping, but not a true number one.
Yeah.
So I think I have to be clear with what I'm going to say here. My expectations for Darnell this year were that I'm not so worried about points for Darnell Nurse. I'm looking at him. He takes on tough competition every night.
Yeah.
And he needs to succeed in that for the Oilers to have success. He can't try. He has to succeed. His salary is in in line with expectations that are doing the job, not trying to do the job. This isn't Evan Bouchard. This is a guy who's been built up and ready to be this high quality defender. And I'm using the word defender. I don't need him to score a lot of goals. I think in the past, kind of to borrow a little bit of a TR, when he's trying to be a good defender and an offensive player, that's where things kind of go sideways. So I would like him to, and I really thought this year that would be their job. He and CC, like, we don't care if you get points, lock down the other team's top line, lock it down. The challenge for that is that Darnell and CC, when they're playing against other teams' top line, guess who else is out there? Connor McDavid. And I don't know that CC and Nurse are the right pairing. And I think I have to talk about both Nurse and CC here. If they're not the right pairing to play with guys like Connor McDavid, right? Yeah. They're not that natural passing Barry or Bouchard, those types of guys. Not that they're not good passes, but that is not their strength. So I think that the match is a little bit, it's not ideal that that's who they play with. I want Nurse and CZ have that role, but then they play with those top guys, and I don't think that that's best for the Oilers. So
that's a great point. That's a really interesting point, that you want him out there for the defensive prowess to take on the other team's best players. That's what you want. Right. But he's not the most natural puck-moving defenseman. He doesn't grab it, and he doesn't have the best first pass on the team. Right? He's not bad at it, but doesn't necessarily come that naturally to him. In an ideal world, Nurse would be just that guy that is just a menace to play against, and the shutdown guy who just locks it down in his own end. Truly has that part of his game, fully on lock. And then next to him, maybe the more natural puck distributor. That would maybe be a little more an ideal pairing, so that when you have McDavid out there with those guys, a little bit more natural flow, D to forwards, a little bit more connected. But they've got CC, who's more of a defender as well. And so that puck moving ability isn't necessarily there. I think that's an important point, Struds, that right pairing for the defensive side of the puck, but not necessarily to keep it moving in the right direction.
And that's the hard part. So, it's hard for me to answer the question about Darnell Nurse without getting the whole picture of what he's being asked to do, who he's playing with, and what his role is on the team. So, I think that it's not fair to say miscast, but the pairings aren't ideal. I think that Tyson Barrie would be a better suited player beside Nurse, not for Nurse, but for who their forward line is. Yeah. But you don't probably want Barrie playing against other teams' top lines, right? So that's where it gets. When you're building a team, you're trying to think, hey, what do we need here? Like, we need different guys, but we don't need the same type of D playing with an offensive type of line, right? So that's where it gets really dicey. And I think they're hoping that maybe Bouchard can push up a little bit.
Oh, but I was just going to say, you want to talk about long-term plan. This team will be firing at its best clip when the top pairing is Nurse and Bouchard. That's exactly what you were just describing. When Evan Bouchard is ready to step into that many minutes, and he can handle himself defensively against the best, and because he is a deft puck mover, like he's a good puck moving defenseman when he has even just the tiniest bit of time. Really, that's the evolution that this group is and should be working towards, those two together, isn't it?
Well, it is. And so, but between now and I hope then, you have to figure it out. So, and I'm not suggesting that Connor doesn't like playing with Darnell. That is not what I'm talking about at all. I'm just saying the fit. And when I say Darnell, it's Darnell and CC. Now, they're good NHL defensemen. I think they're good at what they do. But, I'm thinking the big picture. How do you get that puck up to those guys as quick as they can? And so you're probably, I don't know, another year away from I hope Bouchard being ready for that for that jump up.
Yeah.
And maybe less. I don't know, but that's Bouchard's showing some signs of life here. I'm not sure because he scored 3 goals in the last couple of games. Oh, let's put him up with Nurse and let him play. Like, that's not how it works, right? That goes back to the old 80 minutes of good hockey, and then
that's not the end of the ice that's going to determine where Bouchard plays. We both know that, right? He's going to get what he gets offensively. He's a good offensive player. It's come a little slower this year, but it's coming around. The determining factor for him taking that step that they're waiting for him to take is in his own end. And it's been up and down in his own end so far this year for Evan Bouchard. You can say the same about a lot of defensemen. As far as the defensive zone here for Darnell Nurse, I think TR made a good point about overcomplicating things. Last night, there was a play behind the net. Nurse had a second with the puck, just a split second before 2 guys were on him. Easy play around the boards. Winger was standing there on the hash, and instead he tries to go between his legs off the wall in a reverse to his other D-man when he's got 2 guys converging on him. I don't see him playing the game with simplicity and efficiency in mind all the time right now. I do think he does have a tendency to try and do a little bit too much. And coming into the season, I said, I don't care if Darnell Nurse doesn't score a goal all year, honestly. And I meant it, like, not ideal, but the most important contribution from Darnell Nurse is going to be absolutely locking it down defensively this season. That's what this team needs from him more than anything else. And I would give him a mediocre grade just in terms of the quality of defending, limiting the big mistakes, those sorts of things in his own end. I don't think he's been where he would want to be and where they need him to be strictly from that defensive standpoint in his own end, Struddy.
Yeah, and you have to remember, like, the quality competition he's playing against. When you make a mistake, you get burned. Right.
That's why you can't make many. And that's what the demand is of the top D man. You can't make many big mistakes because you're out there against great players. And I just think there have been too many.
So let's just look at the goal last night, the first goal against. The puck's coming to you, and he didn't
have to go down. He didn't have to go down like that.
If you're going to go down, use your hands. Right. You don't need to use your feet. Like, it was just and I've been there. It is so awkward. It comes so fast, and you're under pressure, and just a bad rebound, but. Can you swallow that up? Can you deflect it to the corner? Like, is there another way of handling that? Like, that it, to me, it was just kind of like, it didn't have to happen. There'd been another way out of that situation or another choice of play rather than what he did. And Matthew Tkachuk thanked him for it, right? Like, it was like, oh, geez, that was a nice pass. So it's those things that if you can take those out of your game, and I know people say, well, it's just bad luck. I'm like, I get it, but you're in a position and you're expected to handle that situation when you're playing in that position, right? And people go, well, you make so much money. I get it. Yes, that is part of it, but you're expected. The expectations are you have to manage that situation. That's what you're there for. That's why your job. You're out against other teams' top line, right? You don't want to give them goals. You want them to have to earn them. If someone dangles through you, like if Nathan McKinnon comes through and dangles right through, you're like, you know what? Okay, well, good job. Just like Connor does it to other teams. But that was, to me, a gift goal. So, Darnell, I'm not a harsh critic of Darnell. I do think that you can't talk about Darnell without talking about his partner. And I don't think that, if that's your second pair, no problem. But a first pairing, it is not because of the makeup of the guys. Now, I think that one or the other could be a partner on a first pairing, but they need the opposite of kind of player they are, right? Yeah. That's the reality. And until the Oilers sort that out, we'll be continually talking about the mismatch of that group out the top lines, playing against top lines, but playing with the Oilers' top lines.
Unique. How many $9 million defensemen are there in the league who aren't on the ice when their team's down a goal? In the last minute of a game, aren't on the ice, right? Not very many. And then you flip that to the other side. So he's not on the ice when the team needs a goal with a minute left, and then he starts overtime and makes a fantastic play. It's just unique. I'm not saying that part is his fault. It's more about personnel, right? They've got other guys that can do those things. I'm just saying, Struddy, it's unique because those true number one guys are on the ice in all situations, no matter what. It's not even a debate. And Nurse is not quite there, but to the money. I think what Oiler fans need to always keep in mind, and what I certainly keep in mind when I'm evaluating the money, and this is kind of getting into the reading between the lines a little bit here, But part of investing in Darnell Nurse was also investing in the future of Connor McDavid remaining in Edmonton Oilers. Right? They had no choice but to get Darnell Nurse done. No choice. And the dollar figure, was it a little much? For sure. But how would you feel about overpaying Darnell Nurse by, let's say, $1 million a year? $1 million a year in an overpay, if it guarantees you, or if it plays a large role in making sure that you get another contract out of McDavid, because you can't underestimate how close these guys are.
Yeah.
And it's an investment in that, in my mind as well, Struds.
Yes, I think that people are unfair to Darnell Nurse in his contract situation. What has he done wrong? The Oilers were put in a position they could not extend him when they needed to, which was a contract ago. I guess 2 contracts ago, right? Like they were in a position they couldn't do it, and now they're paying the price. They're literally paying the price because of mismanagement. And I don't really have a problem with it. Like the numbers jumped up. All of a sudden, all these D-men are getting these big bucks. So Darnell's like, that's what I'm worth. And that's what it is.
Of course. You never blame the player.
Well, I mean, like, and he's been a good soldier for the Oilers. And I know that doesn't say, well, we're going to give everyone, whatever, $10 million. But what has the player done wrong? He was drafted here. He's become what you expect, a top pairing defenseman.
Was patient through bridge deals.
And never complain. Everyone else is getting extended, and actually it worked out better for him, right? So by his not complaining, being a good soldier, I think that the money to me gets it skews the conversation a little bit with Darnell, and it's unfair. But I get it. I understand what people are saying, but it is unfair because I don't see him doing anything wrong, and it was mismanagement. The team was mismanaged the cap, and here they are with this contract. If it had been the year before, probably would have been a different number. We might have been talking about your 7.5 or 8 instead of whatever it is, 9 and change. But make no mistake, he's a big important part of this team, and he's going to be. They need to rejig the look of this defense. Hopefully, Bouchard can push up. Hopefully, Broberg can develop, and then you get what you need to be. But it's not overnight. These things don't happen overnight.
Averaging 23.46 this season. That's down from 25.03 last year. The numbers, the analytics, I mean, it's all down on Darnell Nurse this year. He's had some good moments, but a few too many moments in his own end that I think ideally your highest paid number 1 defenseman won't make. And I think the effort will be to tidy some of that stuff up and to simplify. But I do agree with TR's point too. He shows up for his teammates. He is a leader on this team. Is he the perfect player? No. But, I think for the most part, he tries to stay on the right side of things. And, when he's healthy and playing well, and I think they'll be glad they have him in a playoff series if he stays healthy, because he was diminished last year pretty significantly and did pretty well for them. So it'll be interesting to watch Darnell Nurse the rest of the year. All right, Struddy, that's going to wrap it up today. Tidy little package. Oilers, weird schedule, hey? Like on the road for a couple of weeks, come home for a short time, on the road for a week, home for 2 days, back out on the road again. Yeah. It's been bizarre, but it does ease up a little bit here for them moving forward, eh?
It does. But, I looking at their schedule, it is not the most taxing of teams they're playing. And and with the injuries they have, and not to make excuses, but they need to have a little bit of easier. Because who are they up next? Chicago,
Minnesota. Yeah. I believe they got. What do they got? Is it a back-to-back? I'm trying to read my own. Yeah.
So Chicago,
Minnesota.
Yeah. So Chicago, you load up that top line. You say, guys, have at it. We need you tonight. Like Chicago is doing exactly what they want. They're heading towards the bottom of the standings. I think they're, if not second last in their division. And that's what they want to do. So just, thank you. We'll take the 2 points. We're going to load up our top line. Everyone else bring energy, and hopefully we win 4-2 or something like that.
6-11-4, 16 points. Last in the Central, the Minnesota Wild 10-9-2 with 22 points are sitting in 4th place. Oilers back-to-back wins. They piled a couple of wins on top of each other, which means something for this group. A little bit too much win-loss kind of stuff. They'll try and make it 3 in a row. Oilers headed on the road, sitting in the first wild card spot. 24 points with a 12-10 record. Thanks, Struds. Appreciate it, pal.
You're welcome, buddy.
All right, we'll check back in a little bit later on this week. Thanks for your downloads and your subscriptions, folks. And a big thanks to our sponsors, as always, here on Got Your Back YEG, Mr. Dirk, our title sponsor, DLR Vinyl Products, my brother's company in Calgary and Edmonton, Sherwood Buick GMC, and, of course, our good friends over at Weiss Johnson. Have yourselves a fantastic Tuesday, and we'll chat soon. Cheers.